Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome back to our weekly cruise chat for Canadians, where we are experts in the industry and we share our information with you guys and then allow you guys to ask questions at the end. So tonight's hot topics are going to be Bermuda, an absolutely beautiful island, so safe, so beautiful. And then we've got Azamara Cruises. And if you missed last night's presentation, or even if you were on it, well, guess what? Now you're going to get Karen's spin on Azamara. So we all know how that's going to go because we know she had a great time on it. All right. So who are we? We are Vacations for Canadians, and I am the proud owner of this agency. Our team of agents are all experts in the field. They know the cruise lines, they know the destinations, and they would love to help you out. And that is why we are doing this cruise chat, so we can share with you our knowledge and you have an opportunity to ask us questions. So at the end, make sure to stay on long enough because we do offer a prize, something swag like from our agency. And all you have to do is comment in the comment section. Just tell us where you're watching from and your name, and you will be entered to win that prize. All right, so we are going to get started with Luke, and he's going to talk about Bermuda.
Thanks, Tina. All right, let's move on to the
Sorry, I shouldn't touch slides.
Yeah, now we have little buttons that we can play with. All right, tonight's destination is Bermuda. I'm gonna just ask the question now, and maybe we'll do a tally at the end. Put in the comments over on the right-hand side, I guess. Who's been to Bermuda, or who's planning on going to Bermuda, or have a cruise booked to Bermuda? All right, tonight's topic, let's talk about Bermuda. So on the agenda tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about Bermuda, show a map of Bermuda and primarily the Royal Navy dockyards. Then we'll talk about the Navy dockyards, things to see, things to do. And then we'll touch on some beaches because, you know, going south without going to a beach is not going south. And then we'll talk about a list of different excursions you could do in Bermuda. I know the list is long. We'll just touch on a few of them. And then we'll talk about bars, restaurants, things that are available. And I have a few recommendations at the end when it comes to restaurants. And then we'll close off the evening with our discussion with Bermuda on our last slide. All right. Fun facts about Bermuda. And I just noticed there's a typo. Bermuda is an archipelago type of island. It's made up of 7 islands and a multitude of smaller inlets with an average width about a mile. And I have a fun fact here because I thought I've heard this before that we do have some of those in Canada. And if you look at the northern part of Canada, we have those archipelago type of islands. Canada has 94 major islands and 36,469 minor islands. So Canada is kind of like Bermuda, but on a bigger scale. All right. Bermuda's overall length is about 25 miles long, and at its widest point, it is 2 miles wide. You are never more than a mile, regardless of where you are in Bermuda, you're never more than a mile from the ocean. So you can stand somewhere on the island, look in any direction, start walking, and you're never more than a mile away. Bermuda is also known for its snorkeling and diving experience because they have over 300 shipwrecks dating back all the way back to the 1600s. And there is one in one of my pictures. I think that one's dated 1934 or so. And surprisingly, Bermuda is not part of the Caribbean. It's actually on its own. There's a few extra notes here that I have because I could only fit so many facts on this slide. Bermuda has about 60,000 residents. It also is surrounded or part of 181 different islands. So, you know, we talked about the 7 main islands, but then you add another 175 or so small islands around it. Gosling Rum, which we'll talk about later, was founded on the island in 1860, and we'll talk about that a little later. The language spoken, primarily English, and I was shocked with this one. Portuguese is their second language. What else do we have here? For every 1 in 6 people living on an island live in the city of Hamilton, which is the capital. And you can actually snorkel up to 7 miles out in certain areas around the island. And the currency is paid, it's a Bermuda pound, and it's equal to $1 US. So whether you use the US dollar or the British pound or the Bermuda pound, I guess it would be, it's 1 for 1. So those are some little fun facts around Bermuda. All right, our next slide here. And here's the island of Bermuda. This is a kind of a Google snap of it. And you'll notice that if you actually look sideways a little bit, it almost looks like a fish hook. And at the top end or the tip end of the fish hook is where you will find the Royal Naval Dockyard, where the cruise ships will dock. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. And Hamilton is almost right in the center where you see that other little tip or peninsula there, and almost in the center to the right of the or left of the screen there. All right, naval dockyards. Naval dockyards is where a lot of the cruise ships dock. I think they have 2 docking ports for ships. As you can see in the background in the top left picture there, you will see one of the cruise lines. And a little picture included in this picture. These are pictures I've actually personally taken while in Bermuda about 2 years ago. And there's a trawl or a conch train, I guess it's called, tour that you can actually take, and it takes you to the naval dockyards and a little bit further. And we'll talk about excursions later. The next one, top right, we were sitting at a bar. And roosters and chickens roam everywhere, and they actually feed them, and they're part of the scenery. In the bottom left is the clock tower found right there in the dockyards. If you happen to dock on the ship facing the actual naval dockyards, you can actually see the clock tower from a distance. And I thought I'd put in, they should be in museums by now, but we have the famous phone booths that you can still take pictures and see that. I guess they're non-functional anymore, but they still use that as a little bit of an attention, and obviously you can take a selfie with a phone booth. Here's a topical picture of the naval dockyards. At the left of the picture, this is where the ships are actually docked. There's a little causeway to actually walk over to the main part of this particular island. I think it's called West Island. Right there, just above naval dockyards, there's those white buildings with the white roofs. That's the Naval or Royal Naval Museum. Over to the right, you'll see some sand there. That's the Crystal or the Snorkel Park and Beach Club. And just beyond that, behind it, there's a golf course. And the clock tower is probably right there in the center, a little further up in the picture. But we'll touch on that a little later. And it kind of gives you a perspective of what the naval dockyard looks like from, I guess, a drone footage of some sort. All right, move over to the next slide. So here's the kind of taking that naval dockyard Google Maps view of it and making it smaller and kind of showing you where the cruise ships dock in Bermuda. And some of the information here. So it just gives you an idea of what that whole naval dockyard area looks like from an upper view. All right. Beaches. There's plenty of small little beaches around Bermuda. I'll just call out a few of them that are mostly fairly popular to tourists, particularly if you see an excursion with your cruise line, or look at an excursion through your cruise line, whether Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, and other. One of the key things one of the beaches that seems to pop up fairly regularly is Horseshoe Bay. Horseshoe Bay is fairly well known. It's probably one of their most famous beaches. I guess their view is lots of pink sand. And normally if you go to Cuba, you get the white sands. You go to Bermuda, you get more of a pink sand. Crystal clear water. There's a picture that I would have liked to have shown. It's more of all of these little islands, and you can actually see when you're on the cruise ship and you look down, you can actually see the sand, and it's not very deep. Crystal clear water, lifeguards, access to public transportation, and it's just a short shuttle ride to the beach right from the naval dockyards. Lounge chairs and so on. Boogie boards are also available at that beach. Another beach is Sunoco Park Beach. That's the one I talked about earlier. It's a walking distance right from the dockyards. If you were to get off the ship and almost walk straight forward, you have Crystal Park Beach, crystal clear water. There's a beachside restaurant, and for the most part, usually they have either a live band or they have a DJ in the area. It's almost like a little party beach if you want. And there's plenty of snorkeling, and depending on the time of the year, it can be busy, but it's definitely a fun place and a very easy to access beach. Again, it's probably a 10-15 minute walk from the cruise ship itself, and walk back. And of course, there's different attractions and things you can do in between those two things. And then there's Sunset Long Bay Beach and Nature Reserve. This particular beach has a lot of walking trails. It's more secluded, more private. There's playgrounds, there's bathrooms, there's your typical amenities that you like to see from a beach perspective. And again, there are many other beaches. The picture that you see in the top left, I think this Tobacco Beach. Over on the right, where you can't actually see it, there's actually a beach bar there and restaurant. All right, we'll move on to our next slide. Excursions. Well, Bermuda is not an island with missing out on excursions. Again, if you're a diver or you're a snorkeler, you definitely can spend the day doing all of that. And for the most part, you can do it on your own or sign up to an excursion to do that, where they take you out and they bring you to special spots, or those spots that only the locals would know, that are really good for snorkeling and scuba diving and that kind of stuff. In the which is the top left picture. In the top right picture, this is called the Unfinished Church. It's found on the island of St. George, so it's almost the top right hand. If you were to look back at the map that I showed earlier, in the top right hand, there's an island. Part of one of the 7 islands is actually called St. George, and the Unfinished Church is actually found in that portion of the island. And then the picture that I'm showing down at the bottom is the Gosling Sunset Rum Tour. The ship, they pick you up at the port. It's an evening cruise where you get on this little ship and it takes you out, and then you get to try their local rum, and they tell you this history behind the local rum. I'll touch on that a little bit more on the next slide. Explore Crystal Caves. You probably saw it when I was looking at or showing my agenda. One of the pictures down at the bottom, it had the Crystal Caves. Interesting thing here is that in 1907, this cave was found by a couple of local kids looking for crickets and fell upon this cave, and then they looked into it and found out that it had some amazing things to see in the cave, and they've actually opened it up to tourists, and you can do an aquarium slash cave, crystal cave tour if you'd like. Bermuda is also known for its golf courses. It has more there's more golf courts per capita of anywhere in the world based on the population of Bermuda. And they've actually had PGA tours in Bermuda, and it attracts a lot of people. And actually people will actually fly into Bermuda, spend a week in Bermuda, and that's all they do is go from one golf course to the other, and they play golf all week. Again, I talked about snorkeling and diving. And then earlier I talked about conch train. I actually did that one personally. It actually takes you around the dockyards. It takes you to a separate part or further into the inlet in Bermuda, and it takes you around the area. You get to see the oldest cemetery, some of the local flowers. It's a very educational tour if you're interested in doing that. And also the ferry to Hamilton. There's just when you get off the ship, there is a port where you can jump on a ferry that actually takes you from the naval dockyards all the way to Hamilton. You can spend a day in Hamilton or spend the evening. If you are lucky enough to be on a cruise where you dock on one day and you don't leave till the next day, or you're there for a day or two, which is fairly common for Bermuda cruises, is that you can actually hop on that ferry as soon as you get off the ship, head on over to Hamilton, spend the day, enjoy the food, the drinks, the attractions, the museum that Hamilton has to offer. And then depending on what time you want to come back, you can either jump back on the ferry to take you back to port, or you can actually jump into a local taxi, which of course is very safe to do, and they will actually take you back to the port. And that is one thing about Bermuda residents, is that they're the most friendly people you have, and the crime level in Bermuda is actually very low. You get the odd pickpocketing, but other than that, even if you go to travel.gc.ca, there is a warning there for travel, and they do travel across the warnings for across the world. And the warning for Bermuda is very low. So the only thing that's to be careful is pocket picketing, and it's pretty common everywhere you travel in the world. Next slide. Let's see what we have here. Gosling rum. Gosling rum, again, like I said earlier, two brothers got together and started creating rum, if you want, and they perfected it in 1860, and they came out with their rum that was actually called Dark and Stormy, and obviously they've made a drink out of it. And so what I have here, I figured I'd share with you. I have a small collection of Bermuda rum. This is only part of the collection. I actually have most of the different rums they have. This one here is their just regular 40 ounce or 40% Dark and Stormy rum. That's actually pretty cool. And then I also have this one here, and there's a bit of a story behind this one. This one here is the 151 proof Gosling rum. This rum here, they've had to water it down by 2% because they wouldn't be able to ship it anywhere in the world. They wouldn't be allowed to leave Bermuda because I think they originally were looking at bottling it at 153%. But given the laws around the world on how and what you can ship from an alcohol perspective, they've had to reduce it to the 151%. Definitely an outstanding rum. And to prove it, I've got my own drink here to enjoy. So let's look at the Dark and Stormy. So basically the Dark and Stormy is a cocktail where you put some Dark and Stormy rum in there. The key ingredient here is actually the ginger beer. It's not ginger ale. It's actually called ginger beer, with a little squeeze of lime, and there's your Dark and Stormy. Then they have the rum swizzle. You basically take a pitcher of a pitcher, whether it's a pitcher of beer or a jug of juice or whatever you want to use. Fill it 2/3 of the way with some ice. Then add two rums. So you can actually pick 2 different rums. You can spike it however strong you like it, and then you put in some orange juice, pineapple juice, a little bit of grenadine, and some bitters. Some would say it's almost like a rum punch, but it's a little different because you're adding those bitters in there, and obviously you're using some Bermuda rum, which then makes it a rum swizzle. Now, on this cruise tour, you'll notice that these are pictures, or at least the picture there. There's their family reserve, which I do have a bottle of it here. Comes in a nice gift box, I guess. And you get to try from dark and stormy to swizzle to the different types of drinks on that particular excursion. And then you'll notice here that at the bottom right, this is a picture I took. And if I was to zoom in there in somewhere in there, you can see the cruise ship we were on, which was Enchanted Seas. And it's kind of a picture of the island itself. So you actually go out into the water. And then later in another picture, in another slide, I'll actually show you what the sunset looked on the opposite side of the ship on that night. And I've had to capture a picture, and there will be a surprise that comes with that picture. Excellent. All right. Restaurants and bars. I reached out to a couple of friends today that I've cruised to Bermuda with, and that we're planning on going to Bermuda later on in October. And I've asked them what their favorite restaurants or bar was, and the Frog and Onion came out on top. And the Frog and Onion is actually an interesting story. Actually, that picture was taken at the Frog and Onion, and it's also part of the Dockyard Brewery, and it's a Dockyard beer. That beer actually is, I think it's a 64-ounce beer, and that is actually a regular 16-ounce glass next to it to give you a perspective of, the size of the beers that they actually offer. Frog and Onion, basically, it's a French Canadian who opened a restaurant with a Bermudian, hence the frog for French Canadian, and then onion is what Bermudians are perceived to be, or that's kind of like their nickname, just like the frogs from here in Canada. And excellent bar, excellent food. A friend of mine that I've cruised with a couple of times sent me her recommendation. It's Finnegan's in actually Hamilton. So if you were to take that ferry over into Hamilton and spent the day and you were looking for a good place to eat, Finnegan's in Hamilton came highly recommended. And then there's the Bonefish Bar and Grill is actually in the Naval Dockyard. Fairly busy place, which means if it's busy, that's usually the food is excellent. I haven't tried it, but definitely on our cruise in October, I will actually give it a try, so I can vouch for myself that yes, it should be on this list. All right. There's the picture that I talked about earlier, and the surprise is that's Miss Vicky. This is my wife. We were on a Bermuda cruise for her 55th birthday, which we surprised her about 2 weeks or a month before we left. And this was on that Gosling sunset tour. And I took a picture, and this is an unedited, unfiltered picture of what that sky looked like that night. It's simply outstanding. And of course, you can tell that she's happy that she's in Bermuda. She's somewhere south. And, Bermuda is definitely the place to be. And on that note, I will be going I am going on October 31st for a 9-day or 9-night Bermuda cruise out of Baltimore. And you're all invited to join me if you'd like. And we'll make sure we get onto that rum tour. So just a little note on Bermuda, a little touch, is 21 square miles of breathtaking beauty, blended culture, and a hint of mystery. You know what? That saying that I got from the Bermuda website actually does explain it all. The beauty is there, beautiful culture, a lot of history in Bermuda, and obviously it leaves you with some mystery because there's always things to see, always things to visit, and you go back and again to make sure you don't miss those things around the island. And the other thing here that I don't have written and is I have 2 quick tips for you today with regards to Bermuda is Bermuda shorts. If you wear Bermuda shorts with regular loafers and your knee-high socks you will fit in perfectly with Bermuda because that's how they dress, that's how they play golf, and you'll fit in just like a local. My other caution and also a quick tip is please no wearing of military colored clothes of any sort because they have zero tolerance. And actually, you can actually be fined if you're caught wearing any military clothes in Bermuda. They take it seriously, and it's one of those things that if you're normally like to wear, camouflage shorts or camouflage shirt or socks or whatever, please leave those at home. Don't even pack them to go to Bermuda because they have zero tolerance for it. So there's my presentation on Bermuda. Again, been there once, going again, and I highly recommend it. And if you have any questions, reach out to our team or reach out to myself, and we'll help answer those questions on Bermuda. Back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. And it is definitely one of those countries that you can just go back to over and over again. I personally have been there 3 times. It is just so beautiful. But I just want to say that I'm glad you went first since you've got yourself a drink there with 150 proof. So now you can enjoy it now that your part's over.
Yes.
I think we planned that one appropriately.
Yes. Excellent.
All right. Okay. Karen is up next, and she's going to talk about Azamara.
Indeed, I am. So Azamara is a big hot topic of VFC these days because it is our supplier of the month. And I recently had the opportunity to sail Azamara for the very first time. And I'm here to share with you a little bit about my experience because it was quite impressive and something I didn't expect to be so incredible. So, I've done a lot of cruising and I've been very fortunate to travel on different cruise lines, but I'd never really sailed on Azamara, nor did I really know of any people who had. So the ad came up one evening and I saw it come up. I think Rick might have posted it actually. And it was for a Croatia intensive voyage. And I thought, I've been to Croatia before. It's on my list to go back again. And I really wanted to try Azamara. So this was my opportunity. I took it and we ran with it. So here is kind of how it all unfolded. So Azamara has 4 ships. They are all the same size and they're all the same shape. So they're all pretty much identical plans. I was on Pursuit. There's Onboard, Quest, and Journey. And these ships are a smaller ship. In fact, I was a little bit apprehensive as to how that would feel. So I like the big ships, and I didn't know how a smaller ship would feel to me. There's about 720-ish passengers per ship, maybe a few less. Our sailing had 630. So we were a bit smaller. And I was curious as to how that would feel. Would we feel compressed? Would we feel like we're too compacted all over each other? And the answer was none of the above. It was really quite an indulgent experience. It is a luxury line. And as I will share with you throughout this presentation, all the little extra tips and things that they add along their sailing to make it feel that much more special. So the one thing I really, really liked with Azamara is I went in with a bare bones package. So I just picked the deal of the day kind of thing where it was an interior cabin with an ocean view window. So normally I like to spoil myself and get a balcony. And this time it wasn't available. It was kind of last minute. So I was a little bit curious as to how that would feel as well. And I didn't get a drink package because with Azamara, you always get this always included kind of package, which is their experience more. So what that means is you get a really good assortment of sodas, alcoholic beverages, your coffees, your teas, all kinds of great drinks as part of the deal. You don't have to upgrade your package at all. And the beauty of that is, they have an extensive list of options, but you don't have to sign for anything. So you can go and grab a drink and they hand it to you. That's that simple. The gratuities are also included, which is amazing because that does add up, as you know. So that's part of their always experience more package, as well as their room service. And then a few things I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail tonight is the As Amazing cultural event, which is an incredible event, a way to really immerse yourself in the actual area that you're visiting, as well as the White Night, which is a very, very special evening that I'll share with you a little bit of detail on how ours unfolded. So the great thing is here, you get a lot with your package. So your money goes far. You don't get a big bar bill at the end of your sailing. You don't have to worry about extra packages. Although, of course, they do have those package add-ons if you wanted to. But we went with the basic, and it was plenty. We had lots of options of beer, wine, all kinds of drinks. It was great. So the one thing I think Azamara does exceptionally well is what they call their intensive voyages. So as I mentioned to you, I was on the Croatia intensive. Now, I had been to Croatia before. I'd been to Dubrovnik and I'd been to Split. Those are the popular destinations of many, many different cruises. So you may have visited there yourself as well. But what this does is actually takes you into the country and explores those places that the larger ships just simply can't get to. So on the screen here, I've got a sampling of some of the intensive voyages that they offer. So you can do intensive Japan, you can do intensive Ireland, Scotland, Croatia, of course, Quebec, a lot of different areas that you otherwise may have hit very briefly on a different sailing, or maybe you visited on a land adventure. But this one, you actually can get to, 9, 10, 12 days of going to those extra special ports. So I do quite like that. It's a different experience and a different itinerary than what you typically see on those the main lines. A couple of pictures of the ship. So when you walk in, you'll notice that it is, about 8, 10 decks. And it's very well appointed. They really list their rooms kind of like a home, in fact. So you've got the den is one of the lounges. You've got the cabaret, which is the top left-hand corner, which is where the entertainment is done. We've got the living room as well, which is a comfortable place just to crash and to chat with friends that you met along the way. And then you have the patio, which is the bottom right-hand corner, which is like an alfresco dining area. And that you can get your lunch, you can get dinner as well. And a special event for those evening events like the White Night, as well as some other special features that they toss in there too. So a picture of the pool deck there on the top right, and our cabin. So as I mentioned, our cabin was a bit unique in the sense that it was an ocean view cabin, but the neat thing about this cabin was it was actually lengthwise. And what I mean by that is normally when you walk in the room, you walk in the front door, and then you've got a long cabin ahead of you. In this case, you walked in the door and you had the desk area and the washroom and closet on one side, and then you had the bed area on the other side. So it actually made the cabin feel really spacious, even though it was probably the exact same footprint, but just switched on the other side. So that happened to be the deck that we were on, and we overlooked kind of the sixth floor there. So it was a great spot just to get some, it didn't have a balcony, but it worked really well for us. And then the bottom, you can see the bottom left is where near the pool area. So really nice lounges for you just to crash, read a book, grab a comfy egg chair and just relax and watch the ocean go by. And then on the right-hand side there, that's my husband, Mike, and that's where we were enjoying breakfast every morning. So it is a beautiful, beautiful spot on the aft of the boat, and, really, really well-appointed ship for sure. One thing I did want to note is the deck chairs in that area. So one measure of kind of luxury for me is how the deck chairs feel when you lay down into them. And I'm thinking that these deck chairs are probably the most comfortable ones I've ever sat in. The padding was about yay thick, you just kind of sunk into it. And it was kind of one of those spots where you never wanted to move from. And you really didn't have to, because drinks were served to you anytime you kind of had an empty glass and you were ready to have a next one. So the White Night is something that really is special. It is a magical, magical night. And I have to admit that I've been to white parties in the past on different sailings. And, typically the guests dress in white and you have a disco party kind of thing on the pool deck. And I didn't really appreciate what the hype was going to be about until we arrived. So our White Night party was in Dubrovnik. So we had a late night there, and our ship was anchored right in the cove of Dubrovnik. So watching the twinkling lights behind us as the sun was setting. And when we came back on board, it was a later day in Dubrovnik. And that's another thing about the intensive voyages, or Azamara as a whole, is that you have really long days. So you arrive early and you stay late, which is awesome. So we got ourselves all ready for dinner, and we were kind of arriving a little bit late to what we thought. And this photograph is taken from our table where we dined that evening. And what we found was that every table was lined with white tablecloths, with linens and whatnot, and everybody was dressed head to toe in white. And this was an experience like none other. So the twinkling lights, everything was just set up just so. And the spread they put on was unbelievable. So just tucked behind that stage there is where the patio is that I showed you earlier. And that patio was transformed into the eatery. And it was a gigantic buffet with everything you could ask for. A pasta bar, they had lobster tails, they had seafood, they had salads, they had everything you could possibly want, and then some. And you could just go back as many times as you want. And right there, the picture that you're seeing is the entertainment. So this particular cruise line does entertainment very well in the sense that they've got everybody involved, right from the captain. So, oftentimes you might get an announcement from the captain every morning saying where you are and the weather forecast. But in this case, the Captain Michael, he was everywhere. He was part of the dance party. He was part of the greeting guests as they left. He was part of every single show we would see or hear from him. So it's a bit of a different experience in one that the cruise director is also a very talented singer. And they really, really kind of were multi-talented, and they showcase those talents very well because they're a bit of a smaller crew. So as you can see here, there's a lot of people on the dance floor, and the night was really very, very special. So this shows a little bit before sunset. So the top right-hand corner, that's where we were in Dubrovnik, just as we had arrived. And then as the sun was setting, and it was just an absolutely beautiful and simply magical experience. It's I was messaging the VFC team back home, saying, showing pictures, because Tina had shared with me how incredible it was, and she was not lying. It was really something to experience on your own for sure. And then we also were treated to a cultural experience, and the cultural experiences can be done one of two ways. So in every sailing, they have a special event, which could be either off the shore, off the ship, I should say, or on board. And ours was on board. And what they did for us was they brought in a large talent of singers and dancers who were explaining to us the journey through Croatia. So kind of the customs, the traditions, that type of thing. And it was absolutely incredible, very, very moving, very talented, and a really interesting way to learn a little bit about the places we'd been visiting. And we had this about 3/4 of the way through the voyage. So we'd met a lot of friends at that point in time, and it was very very interesting. Now, I've heard of Highland dancers coming on board. I've heard of even people going off to a special event. And this is all included, of course. It's they have 2 showings to make sure that you can accommodate your dinner and enjoy that. So some of the other touches that are on board are self-serve laundry. So oddly enough, that's a very exciting thing when you've been traveling for a while and you can go and do your own laundry. And, they've got self-serve laundromats. You just go in, they've got the detergent, they've got everything ready to go, which is terrific. Kind of working around the clock here, we've got a refrigerator that's stocked full of all kinds of goodies. So when we first arrived, of course, our cabin steward came to introduce himself. And the first question he asked was, what do we want our fridge stocked with? So we had our choice of whatever we wanted, and it was replenished kind of as we needed it to be. So that was a really nice touch. And of course, with that package, it doesn't cost you any more. The other thing that I noticed was that, the extra touches of the bartenders, the bar staff, noticing and kind of anticipating your next need. So we might be at the pool, we're chit-chatting with friends who we'd met, and we're just kind of frolicking around, and they would come around and proactively bring us ice water, or they bring us cool towels to refresh ourselves on a hot day. I mean, it was very, very hot in Croatia in the summertime. So it was really, really thoughtful of them to come around, and they just would do that. Of course, as they knew what you were drinking, they would bring that as well. The middle picture on the bottom there, that's like the midnight snack that we would get in our room every night. So when we would come back from dinner and seeing the show at the cabaret, we would come back and there'd always be some little sweet treats that were waiting for us on our desk there for us to enjoy. And then the picture on the left-hand side there, that is our view from our dinner table. So it is all open seating. It's anytime dining, which means you can go anytime that the dining room's open. And the great thing about that is if you've got a later night inshore, you don't have to rush back to get to your table. But what I did notice was that as soon as we would arrive, I mean, we did have a where's just a table for two. And we kind of noticed that we liked a certain server because they were just a dynamic team. We quite enjoyed their company. And so every time we would come, they would know that, and they would actually have that table ready and waiting for us. And I'm not kidding when I say that was probably the best table in the whole dining room because we had the aft view of the sunset every single night. It was just incredible. They knew what time we were going to be dining thereabouts, and our table was always ready for us. So a lot of extra touches that we found along the way, which were just making that trip a little extra special. Another thing that we really quite enjoyed was when we had either an early arrival. So when we were in Qatar, we had an early back on ship because we had to get to Athens for our last day. We had a sea day. So we were back on board around 1 o'clock. And what they did for us was they actually converted that patio area again to a table, linens. All the areas were kind of reserved for dining, and they put on a really, really nice buffet lunch for us. So not just your typical burgers and fries and that type of thing, which of course were always available, as was the self-serve ice cream, which I did enjoy. But they had, again, a full-on, with pasta bar, the whole big, basically taking the huge buffet that they would normally serve indoors, outdoors, because they knew that people were going to be back on shore early. It was around lunchtime, and they might want something like a little bit more than just a light snack. On our sea day, we had this amazing brunch, and these pictures are from it. They kept on talking about this brunch and how it was going to be quite significant and amazing, and take your cameras out and whatnot. And again, I thought, wow, this is going to be something special, and it really was. So these two photos are just of the food tables, and there's probably about 4 others that I didn't capture before I started digging into my lunch. And they had a beautiful brunch. So all the breakfast fixings, all your lunch fixings, all kinds of great food ready to custom, to be enjoyed there for us. So again, I think it's those little touches where they're kind of thinking about the pattern of people. And if we're going to be on board sooner, let's make sure we have a really nice lunch. We're going to be on board all day at sea. So maybe people like to linger, have a sleep in, or just kind of have a lazy morning. So this brunch is a perfect thing to keep everybody going for the day. So it really, really was an incredible experience. It was a very pleasant surprise from embarkation to debarkation. So our embarkation was literally the smoothest I've ever had. So we did arrive quite early from the Venice area of Italy, and we were excited to get on board, and we were on the ship within like 3 minutes, I think. And once we got on, we had a drink in hand within 5. So it really was quite the extraordinary experience, and one that I would recommend you try. It is a luxury line, and they do it well. You feel very pampered, but not stuffy. And that was the one thing that I really quite enjoyed, was that we met some of the nicest people while on board. It's kind of casual luxury, but it is done well. So top stars, 5 stars there. And their slogan is change the way you see. And I quite like that, because I know a lot of people here this evening have cruised a lot, as have I, as has our team. And this is a very unique experience in all the right ways. So I do invite you to give it a consideration and try. We've got lots of great promotions going on this month, with it being our featured supplier. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer this for you.
Great presentation, Karen. Thank you so much. And I'll tell you a little story about my experience, because I was on Azamara this summer. We did the Ireland intensive itinerary, which was fantastic. And you won't get that on a traditional contemporary cruise line. That is something very specific to a small ship, and even more specific because Azamara does these country intensive itineraries. So you want to go somewhere, go and find it on Azamara, and you'll get a very specific itinerary for that. But my experience, we tried to get into one of the specialty dining, and we couldn't get in. And so what they did for us was, they didn't have any room. The restaurant was completely full. So they put us in the other specialty dining restaurant and brought us the menus from the one that we wanted. So we still got served. We were just in the other specialty dining restaurant. So we were extremely pleased about that. I mean, again, we had the aft view. They always put us at the back of the ship for our specialty dining experiences, and it was wonderful. So thank you so much for that. So we don't have very many questions in there, do we, Linda?
No, it's been quiet in the chat tonight. Don't forget that you don't have to limit your questions to Bermuda or about Azamara. We're here to answer all of your cruising questions, and we have 4 experts and me on the call tonight. So lots of people here to answer those questions, but we did have one. And Becky wanted to know, is the church area easy to get to? I think that
Hey,
one's for
Becky,
Luke.
it's Luke. We're cruising with Becky come October. So, yeah. Becky, there's a couple of options. Like I said earlier, there's the ferry, and it's being offered by Sea Express. I think it's a 45-minute ferry ride from Naval Dockyards all the way out to St. George. There's local buses, which will take you longer, and taxis. There's also ride sharing. So I'm sure we'll connect and figure out a way to get you there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Luke. And we have another question here. It just came in from Lori asking, Karen, how would you compare the food on Azamara to, say, Celebrity?
The food was outstanding. So I've always enjoyed Celebrity's food as well. So I can't say I've not had a great meal on Celebrity, but it was outstanding. The menu offerings were very, very vast. It was beautifully presented. And I think because it's a bit of a smaller ship, I found that the food quality was there, the temperature was there, so everything came out piping hot, and it came to order. So what they do say is that they actually are they prepare it as the orders come in versus it being an assembly line. So that didn't mean we had to wait for our food, but it did mean that it was prepared to order. So if you didn't like this, you wanted a little bit of extra that was something that you could have without any inconvenience or questions asked. So I would say it was top notch. It was kind of a palate for anybody. There was not something there was always something great on the menu for every single night, including the buffet, which we only did on the special occasions and for the breakfast. So it was excellent. Tina, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add.
Oh, no, I honestly, to me, the buffet on Azamara is better than some cruise lines I've been on. Their main dining. It is, and again, not taking anything away from Celebrity, because I think the food is pretty good on Celebrity as well. I've never had a bad meal, but it's just amazing. Yeah, bring your stretchy pants.
Which is always a good tip, no matter where you're sailing or what you're sailing. They do have a gym, though, if that helps.
Yeah.
I didn't use it, but they have one apparently.
Exactly.
That's funny. So this one, we're going to toss it back to Luke. And Jane asked, can you purchase rum on the Gosling cruise?
Yes, definitely. And make sure you bring your credit card, because if it's anything like me, the last time I was on there, they had 2 full boxes and they actually bring it onto the ship. They hand it to the cruise line, and then it shows up in your room the day before you disembark, because as most cruise lines, any alcohol you bring on board, they store it away in a safe environment, and then it shows up in your room the night before. So yes, you can. And like I said, bring your credit card, because I know I'm bringing mine this time too. So
that sounds amazing. All right. And throwing back to Karen, it's kind of like a little tennis match of questions here. So this one comes from Karen, and she asked what the average age is on Azamara.
That's a good question. I'm on our particular sailing. So we sailed in July, and we had one family with teenage, like kind of late teenage children. There weren't a lot of kids on board. I'm very hard with ages, but I would say 55-ish is my guess. There's a lot of couple. I mean, it did range, of course, but it wasn't like a young party kind of demographic. But it was, it felt at home. So for whatever that means, I don't have the exact stat on that one, but I would say
If I had to guess, Karen, I would probably say 60.
Okay.
Just because I think I felt a little bit on the younger side, but again, not very many kids. There's nothing really for kids to do on Azamara. So the only time you're going to see kids on Azamara is usually when the grandparents want to bring the whole family, but they don't want to do, contemporary cruising. They want to do something a little bit more upscale. So, but it wasn't like, there wasn't walkers and wheelchairs everywhere either. It was, it was kind of like Celebrity when you do a longer cruise when there isn't a lot of kids. That's pretty much the same age.
Great. So I think we have answered all the questions. So we'll give you one last opportunity. If you have any cruising questions for our team tonight, we'd love to answer them. And if you, maybe we missed this. Ron is popping in here. How many ships in this line? Who is the parent owner of the Azamara line?
Karen, I'm Googling it right now because here it is. I remember it now. It's Sycamore Partners. So they used to be owned by Royal Caribbean Group, but they sold them over COVID, and now it's Sycamore Partners. Sorry.
I wouldn't have known that. And there are 4 ships. Yes. There are 4 ships, and they're all pretty much the same as one another. So they're the same size, same layout, same type of ship so far.
Great. Thank you. You're very fast on the Google, Tina. So if you do have questions, and if you're following us on our Facebook group, or you're following us on our page or any of our other social media, or on our website looking for information, please always feel free to reach out to our travel advisors. They're happy to help you. That's what they're here for. And if you need a quote, please to do that. Don't ever feel like you're intruding, because that's what they do, and they're great at it.
Absolutely. They are the best in the business.
All right. So with that said, we're going to jump over. We're 8 minutes early, but we're going to jump over to our giveaway tool. And tonight we're going to give away a passport holder, and it's a nice one. Nicely branded. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So here we go. If it comes up with Vacations for Canadians or Lori, we'll draw again. Elaine, congratulations. And Matt's not
awesome.
even here,
Matt's
so
mother.
we can't even say that it was fixed, because Matt's not here today.
No, it was definitely not fixed. So Elaine, we'll get you that passport holder. We'll send it in the mail.
Amazing.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I guess that's our cue to end. So thank you everybody for coming out and joining us. And don't forget to tell others to come join us. This is we're doing this on our own time, and we just want to help you by sharing our information. And, like I said, we're experts in the field. So we want to share that information with you. So, get your friends and grab a drink and come join us on Wednesdays at 7. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.